He saw the enemy. He lit the fuse too early. This was not a battle. This was an apocalypse. October 1813. Outsinn the city of Leipzig. 500,000 men. 2,000 cannons. 4 emperors and kings, all gathered on a muddy field in Germany for one purpose: to kill a god. For 15 years, Napoleon Bonaparte had been the master of war. He had rewritten the map of Europe with gunpowder and genius. He seemed invincible. But the year before, in 1812, the world had seen something new.
They saw the Grande Armée, broken, frozen, eating their own horses in the snows of Russia.
The myth was shattered. The god of war could bleed. Now, Europe gathered like wolves around a wounded bear to kill it.
But how? How did the greatest military genius in history let himself be trapped in a swamp?
Outnumbered 2 to 1, with his back to a single bridge?
The answer isn't just about strategy. And a terrified corporal whose panic drowned an empire. Welcome to the Battle of the Nations. To understand the slaughter at Leipzig, we must look at the ghost haunting Napoleon's mind: Russia.
6 months earlier, Napoleon had returned to Paris. He didn't ride at the head of a conquering legion.
He arrived in a sleigh, wrapped in furs, virtually alone. He had left France with 600,000 men. He came back with ghosts. The Grande Armée was buried under the Russian snow. Europe celebrated. The Ogre was finished. France was drained of men, money, and hope.
But Napoleon was not a man who followed the rules of logic. While his enemies celebrated, he worked 18 hours a day. He drained the banks. He emptied the arsenals. And most tragically, he emptied the schools. In months, he raised a new army. 400,000 men. It was a miracle of logistics. On paper, the Grande Armée had risen from the dead. But look closer. These were not seasoned soldiers, just cracks in the armor. These were not the hardened veterans of Austerlitz or Marengo. Those men were dead.
These were the Marie-Louise, named after the empress who signed their conscription orders. They were inexperienced, fresh to the field, far from home.
They were so small that the standard issue uniforms hung loose on their frames.
They had to march in clogs because there wasn't enough leather for boots. Many of them didn't even know how to shave yet. They were brave. They loved their emperor.
But they were untrained. On the battlefield, they didn't know how to reload their muskets fast enough. They would stand in line, fumbling with gunpowder, while the enemy cut them down.
Napoleon had an army of young conscripts. But worse than that, He had a blind army.
In the 19th century, cavalry was not just for charging. Cavalry was your eyes. Scouts, outriders. They told you where the enemy was. But in Russia, Napoleon had lost virtually all of his horses. Tens of thousands of them, frozen or eaten. You can conscript a boy in a week. It takes years to train a war horse. So, in 1813, Napoleon marched into Germany blind. He couldn't see over the horizon.
He didn't know where the enemy was concentrating. He was a giant, swinging a massive hammer at shadows. October 16th, 1813. Napoleon decides to stand and fight. He believes he can win. But the battlefield is a trap, surrounded by rivers and swamps. If he loses, there is no room to maneuver. Day 1. The French attack. And for a moment, the old magic returns. The Allied monarchs actually panic. The Tsar of Russia and the King of Prussia mount their horses, ready to flee.
In Paris, the church bells begin to ring. They think the emperor has won another Austerlitz.
But he hadn't. The French charge ran out of steam.
The boys were too tired. The horses were too few. Night fell. The lines held. Day 2. Sunday. A strange, terrifying silence hangs over the battlefield.
Napoleon waits. He expects the Allies to retreat. But they don't retreat. They grow.
Napoleon sends a letter proposing a truce. The Allies don't even dignify it with a response.
Day 3. The betrayal. The fighting resumes. The ring of steel closes. And then, in the middle of the heat, the unthinkable happens. The Saxon Corps. 5,000 German soldiers fighting for Napoleon. Suddenly, they stop firing at the Russians.
They turn their cannons around and they open fire on the French.
Treason! The cry went down the line! The smoke was so thick that at noon, it looked like midnight. Treason! The cry went down the line!
The front collapsed. Napoleon's army wasn't just beaten, it was being murdered from the inside.
Men couldn't tell friend from foe. Only flashes.
Napoleon orders a retreat. But here is the final, fatal mistake. But there was only one route out. One single stone bridge.
Fate hung out a terrified corporal. He panicked.
The bridge shattered. 30,000 men were trapped.
Marshal MacDonald swam. He survived.
But Marshal Poniatowski refused to surrender.
God has entrusted me with the honor of the Poles. I surrender it only to God. He was swept away. The last knight of Europe died in the mud.
The catastrophe is total. Napoleon lost 70,000 men. He lost Germany. The empire crumbled like sand. April 1814. He signed his abdication.
He bid farewell to his old guard.
They exiled him to Elba, a rock in the sea.
The kings of Europe breathed a sigh of relief. The monster was in a cage.
The long war was finally over. Peace had returned to the world. They were fools. They forgot one thing. You cannot cage a storm. Napoleon was not finished.
He was just planning.